took his blessing from the rabbi, and the whole 9 yards. Anyway.
Wow.
So who are going to be the losers?
Oh, let me see. The Israeli people, the Iranian people, Canadian people, American people. Oh wait, average people in general are going to lose.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So if you're not part of the military-industrial complex, you're not an international financier, and you're not an oil company, you're shit out of luck.
You're not a,
in the world in which Stephen Harper
was. Corporation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be brutal, man. It's going to be brutal.
It's not cool. And I mean, that is the saddest part too. And this is something that I really want to say, because I think too often when people hear this, they hear this through, perspectives they've already formed in their mind. And they hear people talk like this and they think, oh, it's just a bunch of pro-Israeli anti-war thing. It's like, you know what? No. Just as importantly is this isn't fair for the Israeli people too. The Israeli people don't support a war with Iran.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't about being against Israel or for Iran. This is about, again, rationalism. What do you support? Foreign bombings, illegal invasions and wars, or diplomacy? I mean, it's that the choice shouldn't be that hard. You know, like you notice what the other thing that we haven't been talking about in the news at all? The mainstream media has not been covering the slide to war with Iran at all. Not in a critical way, anyways. The only thing we get is parroting and repeating of the government's positions as we slide towards.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to call that coverage, fine. We're going to be quibbling over minutiae and semantics, but I don't call that coverage. I call coverage when you take a look at an issue from all different angles and try.
It's not being dissected. It's not being interpreted. It's not being placed in context. It is not providing the mainstream media is not providing any of the foundations of actual journalism when it comes to the economic and military preparations against Iran.
Yeah. I want to vote on that war, by the way.
I hear you.
I want to vote. I'm in a democracy. I feel like I should be able to vote on stuff like that. I mean, Stephen Harper didn't campaign on going to war with Iran. Like, does he have a mandate to do that? Who gave him consent? Who gave him consent to do that? I don't think our country should be going to war.
It makes me even think, Tony. It's like, okay, you know what? This might be for radicals. It might be considered non-radical, and for non-radicals, it's probably considered radical. But how about opening another house of parliament for ordinary people? And even if decisions aren't being made, a place where they can go, talk, debate, vote on ideas, propose their own ideas, even if it's not something where actual, that has any formal power. At least it gives people a place to go and express their opinions and show their differences with the government. Why are governments so scared of that kind of activity?
And I agree with you 100%, Mike. And because we've almost completely dedicated this show to inter-party cooperation, and we're currently talking about the slide to war with Iran, I'd like to pull it back into the context of cooperation and point out a very fundamental fact. Okay? I don't think that Justin Trudeau, Thomas Mulcair, or Elizabeth May would be taking our country to war with Iran.
I would hope not. I would hope that
even though the Liberal Party, nor the NDP, nor the Green Party has criticized very openly Harper's foreign policy where Israel and Iran is concerned. I mean, that I take issue with all of the opposition parties for. However, I don't think those people, May, Mulcair, or Trudeau, would be doing the same thing that Harper is doing right now. And I think that is common ground that we could build on, you know?
Exactly. But then that's what we have to find, is the common ground between these parties. And fortunately, most of the common ground lies, 99% of it lies on completely progressive policies.
Yeah.
And, we need to focus on those issues.
Yeah.
We don't want to go to war with Iran. There is no benefit to that. And
the one thing I'd like to leave people with tonight is I mean, all three opposition parties have values in common. The Liberals are not conservatives. The NDP is not a conservative party. The Green Party doesn't have a conservative platform. You know,
all of them share differences that aren't in complete opposition. Yes, the Green Party focuses on the environment. The NDP is obviously more supported by unions and more interested in workers' rights, and Liberals claim a middle ground where they look to the average Canadian. But the thing is that all three of those are beneficial to any three of those groups. Unlike the Conservatives want to destroy workers' rights in Canada. Yeah. They have no concern for the average Canadian, and they don't have an environmental policy.
Yeah.
You know, like, so we need to look at our similarities rather than our differences, and not, not criticize our neighbor and our fellow opposition party supporters who support different parties than we support.
Absolutely. In this country, Mike, I think that there is an us and that there is a them. I think that them is the Conservative Party and its supporters. I think the us is the Liberal Party, NDP, and Green Party and all of their supporters, right? Here's why. The Conservative Party is made up of evil people and stupid people. The Liberal Party, NDP, and Green Party are made up of decent people. This is the way I see it. This is my opinion. I don't know if you want to sign on to that, but this is what I think, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I would say that your chances of finding a decent person are much higher in any of those other three opposition parties. Is there a conservative out there that might be a decent person? Sure, but you know what? The third group you forgot to include was stooges. People who think they're out there doing good for conservatives, but really everything they do fails even their conservative constituents.
Right, that falls under stupid. I said they're made up of...
You're right. It's a subcategory. Stooge.
Yeah, it's a subcategory of stupid. Stooge. Yeah. So when I say can we agree on this once? Can we find common ground? Me as a Liberal and you as a member of the NDP. Can we find the common ground and agree that the Conservative Party is made up of evil people and stupid people?
And that's the party themselves. You know, I don't want to slam their supporters completely, because I really, really also hope that there's a number of people who just realized that they were foolish and voted for the Conservatives last time around, and know that, hey guys, guess what? You don't have to be ignorant like everyone else and just stick with the party because your dad voted for it, or your mom or your grandfather voted for it, or because you're in a conservative riding. You know, no one knows what you do in that voting booth. You can go out there and you can vote against the Conservatives, because even as a conservative voter and constituent, they do not provide anything for you. Nothing. You know, like,
unless you're an oil company, and like, I mean, maybe people are oil companies. I mean, but you know what I mean? So I could see if you benefit from their tax policies, if you're uber rich, you're an oil company, you know, you've got stock in friggin' Lockheed Martin or whatever, you know what
SNC
I mean?
SNC Laval.
Yeah, I mean, then yeah, sure, okay, vote for Stephen Harper because he represents you. But if you are not an oil company and you don't stand to benefit from wars and tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, then that party has nothing for you. Nothing. Period.
Nothing at all.
Period. The rest of it that they claim to have for you is just an illusion that they cast over their real agenda, which is just the transfer of wealth from the average person to the wealthy person. That's it. That's all they have.
Exactly. I had a thought this afternoon too, and I think I want to share it here at the end, because this is something that, even though I've admitted on the show that I don't personally identify as an environmentalist, it doesn't mean I don't have environmental concerns. And we said it earlier, all three opposition parties have environmental policies. The Conservatives don't have an environmental policy. And that should actually be what the NDP says back to the Conservatives every time they use the word carbon tax. Because, yeah, you know what? It might be the same methodology where, yeah, okay, are the NDP really lying if they say the Conservatives don't have an environmental policy? Because the Conservative environmental policy is to deny everything that environmental science has taught us since 1950.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one hell of an environmental policy.
Yeah, you're opening up a can of worms there, my friend.
You know?
I mean, they have an environmental policy. It's called create jobs. So they say, right? So they say, because like when you actually even when you talk about that, you're feeding into their strategy. So yeah, because they want you to be the green person. Yeah, because you know what? I don't think there is an environmental movement in this country. It's an issue that people pay lip service to, and then they fucking vote according to their economic. I mean, their perceived economic interest. But I still think that in private moments in people's minds, when they actually can be rational and be aside from group thought, that I think they know that when it comes to going to their cottage and going fishing or swimming with their children and their grandchildren, that they know in their heart of hearts that the best policy isn't to vote for Stephen Harper, that they have environmental concerns themselves. And if they're going to listen to somebody like Stephen Harper, then they have to realize that they're turning a blind eye to the destruction of the Canadian environment. I mean, it's one thing that's without a doubt that Stephen Harper, other than his dismantling of a democratic system where he's essentially been able to withhold information until after votes have passed and remove debate and limited debate, the one thing that's absolutely certain, other than his anti-democratic stance, is his anti-environmental stance. Yeah, because, I mean, the environment keeps on getting in the way of the oil companies. So, I mean, it's just that simple. People, come on, wake up. And again, I mean, not to get too deeply into this, it's just, it plays into their hands whenever they can frame the environmental issues as in, it's either the environment or your job. Do you like the environment? You must hate having a job. You know what I mean? We will stick up for your job. And guess what? They succeed with that.
That's right. And that's why I'm saying, let's not engage conservatives on that angle and argue against what they're saying. Let's do the same thing they do and hit them with the values that their supporters recognize, which is family, business, and their children. And say to them, hey, do you have concerns for your family, your business, or your children? Mm-hmm. I mean, Justin Trudeau just did this tonight. That
Bingo.
Was kind
you
of
nailed
one
it.
of
Exactly.
And it's a smart move. We have to do that. We have to talk to these people in the same sort of language that they understand. So, you know, what do you want? Do you want a future where your child has a chance to go off and die in a foreign war for American or Israeli foreign policy? Do you, or would you rather support diplomacy? Do you really want a future where if your child gets sick, you have to hope that he has the money to pay for health care? Or do you want to continue to maintain our Canadian healthcare system? You know, like,
exactly.
Do you want to go swimming at the cottage with your children and fish? Or do you want all of our lakes, rivers, and oceans to be overfished and polluted? What do you want your children to earn a living wage and buy a house and a car like you know, and give a future to their children like you did for them? Or do you want to support Stephen Harper and his relentless support of multinational corporations robbing you of any real political representation?